We already got to edit this out. This is a new shirt, and I didn't even take the sticker off of it. We'll edit this out. Ridiculous. All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 television program in the history of the entire universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown, all 3 books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'm going to be reviewing The Grand Design by John Marco. This is book number 2 in his Tyrants and Kings epic fantasy saga that is very reminiscent of Game of Thrones. We've got a cover. You know I love graphic design and cover art. We've got a great cover by the artist Doug Beekman. Now, this book came out in the year 2000. It is the sequel to The Jackal of Nar. And then, of course, I edited that one out too. Of course, book number 3 is The Saints of the Sword. And they all have cover art by Doug Beekman. And they all just look great on the shelf together. They've all got spines that match. So good job to the publisher for making them all look super spiffy. And I actually do, for some reason, have all the mass market paperbacks of the same series. And again, they all look pretty good on the shelf together too. So all things combined, I mean, not a bad looking set of books, if I do say so myself. But now let's talk about the book we came to review, which is, I'll hold up the little one, The Grand Design by John Marco, book number 2. Now it begins, this is a fantasy world that John Marco has put together with great world building, some of the best world building in a fantasy world I've ever read. Like I said, reminiscent of Game of Thrones, but if Game of Thrones was had World War I trench warfare and a lot of it, I mean, I'll just say this begins with a siege of a castle that involves swords, arrows, bows and arrows, spears, battle axes, plus these weapons, these steampunk type weapons, machines that shoot poisonous gas and fire and different things. They're lit and fueled by kerosene, flamethrowers. This whole epic saga involves warriors, religious fanatics, daring escapes from snowy castles, betrayals and kidnappings, and many, many, many Game of Thrones-esque plots and political intrigues, all in the name of The Grand Design, is what it's called. We've got these people in these, we've got a map here. And we can see the map has got this big country over here, this big country over here, and this little country in the middle that seems to be where all the battles take place. It's not a good place to be. And I like the map, and I like the names of the cities on the map. Lusolor, Aramor, Talistan, Nar City. I mean, this is just a nice, it's a simple map, but a beautiful map. So, once again, our infamous warrior from book 1, The Jackal of Nar, Prince Riccius Vantran, he's once again caught between two forces, two warring forces. I just showed you the map of how that works. And Prince Riccius Vantran is known as the Jackal of Nar throughout the land. Due to events that happened in book 1, he's now in exile. But whilst he's in exile, the country of Nar has exploded into civil war. Religious fanatics of Bishop Harith, and I think they're called, it's the Light of God Church or something. I mean, they call themselves the Light of God, all of his followers, the Bishop Harith. Well, they are kind of warring against the ruthless Count Baggio and his group, which is called the Black Resistance. And so that's kind of the main conflict. And like I said, it's a world war. It's a big world war fueled by hideous war machines and swords and sorcery and torturers and assassins and all these different type of characters that are intermingling. It's a big book. I mean, this is a pretty thick book. I think it's like 700 pages or something. 800 pages. I was wrong. And there's another player in this game, though, this Game of Thrones, or this grand design, and he's more of an innocent bystander named Simon, who he's a young soldier, gets swept up in this war because he's been tasked with a quest. So it's kind of like a Game of Thrones political intrigue type massive world war kind of novel, but there's also like a bunch of side quests. And the main side quest is young Simon, the soldier. He's sent on a mission to kidnap a young girl who just happens to be um, Richard Vantress's, the Jackal of Nar's daughter. And this daughter he has is his only weakness. He's a tough guy. There's a lot of tough guys in this story. I mean, it starts out with tough guys, fighting against tough guys, plotting against tough guys. But Richius, do I keep calling him Richard? I don't know why I do that. We'll edit all the Richards out. It's Richius Vantress. His only weakness is his daughter. And so the bad guys know that if we kidnap this girl, that might change the tide of everything. And that's the basic plot. It's just a great fantasy book. It's got some real grim and gritty It's got a real grim and gritty writing style to it. It's got enough blood and guts to keep those grim, dark people happy, but yet it's not so bloody as Game of Thrones or even my books that it's not going to turn people off who hate R-rated things. It's kind of it's a step above PG-13. It's probably rated R. It's just not bloody rated R. I really like this series. This is the second time I'm reading through it, and I'm falling in love with it again. It's an absolutely underrated series of books. Criminally underrated. I mean, it came out in, like, this one came out in 99, this one came out in 2000, book 3 came out in 2001 or something like that. And they've kind of been forgotten over time, but let's bring these things back, and everybody start reading them again. I'm going to give The Grand Design a solid 9.5 out of 10. It's just such a well-written fantasy novel with a real atmosphere to it that I really enjoyed.